When we think of the final days of the Mesozoic, 66 million years ago, our minds fill with images of titans. We picture Tyrannosaurus rex, the 9-ton theropod king, ruling the land. We imagine the great Mosasaurus, an aquatic lizard the length of a bus, dominating the seas. And when we look to the sky, we see the most infamous family of pterosaurs the world has ever known, the Hatzegopteryx. Of all the members in this family, one name reigns supreme, Quetzalcoatlus. This magnificent creature, named after the feathered serpent god of the Aztecs, ruled the skies of North America. For decades, it has been known by all as the largest animal to ever take flight. It is the icon, the champion, the undisputed king of the prehistoric skies. However, in reality, there was another member of this family. It lived at the exact same time, yet on the other side of the world. And it was not just a competitor. It was a creature that was likely even larger, heavier, and far more terrifying. This contender challenges the reign of Quetzalcoatlus and forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew about the limits of life. This was the true apex predator of the Cretaceous skies, a creature known as Hatzegopteryx. Our journey begins not with a complete skeleton, but with a baffling mystery. In the 1970s, a student-led dig team was exploring the rocks of western Romania. They were in a region known as the Hatzeg Basin, an area rich with fossils from the very end of the dinosaur age. They began to unearth bones, but these were unlike anything they expected. They found 2 large pieces of a skull and a massive humerus, or upper arm bone. The bones were so enormous that the paleontologists who first studied them were completely baffled. A flying reptile of this size was simply not considered possible. Their initial conclusion was that the remains must have belonged to a new type of theropod, a meat-eating dinosaur. The sheer thickness and size of the bones seemed to confirm it. For a long time, these remarkable fossils went fairly unnoticed, a strange puzzle piece that didn't seem to fit anywhere in the known world. It was not until more than 30 years later, in 2002, that the animal was finally given a name. Paleontologists, re-examining the bones, realized the structure and shape, particularly of the skull fragments, were not from a dinosaur at all. They belonged to a monstrous titanic pterosaur. It was dubbed Hatzegopteryx thambema. The name itself is a declaration of war on our expectations. The first part, Hatzegopteryx, means Hatzeg Basin Wing. This was a reference to the prehistoric Hatzeg Island, the unique landmass this mighty creature once inhabited. The second part, thambema, is a Greek word for monster. The scientists who named it were not being subtle. This was, in their own words, the winged monster from the Hatzeg Basin. The name itself was a nod to its absolutely absurd size, and a prelude to the bizarre story it was about to tell. To understand Hatzegopteryx, we must first look at its famous rival, Quetzalcoatlus. For years, Quetzalcoatlus was the benchmark for size, believed to possess a wingspan of up to 11 meters, or 36 feet. This makes it as wide as a small Cessna airplane. It was, for all intents and purposes, the ceiling for vertebrate flight. Hatzegopteryx matched this. Current estimates place its wingspan in a comparable range, somewhere between 11 and 12 meters, or 36 to 39 feet. Its humerus, the massive upper arm bone that anchored the wing, was noted to be slightly longer than that of Quetzalcoatlus, leading some to give it the higher-end estimate, making it the largest wingspan of any known pterosaur or bird. But wingspan is not the whole story. It is not what makes this creature so terrifying. An albatross has a massive wingspan, but it is a lightweight glider. The true difference was in its build. While Quetzalcoatlus was built with a gracile, delicate frame, Hatzegopteryx was, to use the scientific term, freakishly robust. It was, in every sense of the word, built like a tank. While standing on the ground, it would have reached a remarkable height of 5 meters, or 16.5 feet. This is similar to the height of a modern adult giraffe. Imagine that for a moment. An animal that can fly, yet stands as tall as a giraffe, looking down on you. This height, wingspan, and sheer robustness have led to the assumption that it weighed far more than other giant pterosaurs, including Quetzalcoatlus. While its exact weight has not been formally estimated, its solid construction means Hatzegopteryx isn't just a contender for the biggest flyer. It is almost certainly the heaviest animal to ever take to the air. This wasn't just a giant, it was a different class of animal entirely. And strangely enough, the reason for its monstrous size wasn't a global trend. It was a local anomaly. The secret to Hatzegopteryx lies in where it lived. 66 million years ago, Europe was not a solid continent. It was an expansive archipelago, a chain of islands large and small, separated by a warm, shallow sea. One of these was Hatzeg Island. This was no small patch of sand. Hatzeg Island is thought to have been comparable in size to present-day Ireland, but it was separated from all other land masses by long stretches of deep ocean in every direction for over 300 kilometers, or 190 miles. It was extremely isolated. This isolation created one of the strangest ecosystems found in the fossil record. It became a natural laboratory for evolution, and it followed two very specific rules: insular dwarfism and insular gigantism. When large animals get stranded on an island, limited resources force them to shrink over generations. This is insular dwarfism, and Hatzeg Island was full of them. Giant titanosaurs, the long-necked sauropods, became stranded and evolved into Magyarosaurus, a titanosaur no bigger than a horse. Hadrosaurs, the great duck-billed dinosaurs, shrank into zalmoxes, a creature you could look in the eye. But the second rule, insular gigantism, is what happens to small animals when their predators are removed. And this is where our story gets strange. At the time of Hatzegopteryx's existence, there were no giant theropods roaming Hatzeg Island. The niche of the apex predator, the role of T-Rex, was completely empty. Nature abhors a vacuum, and Hatzegopteryx stepped in. The ancestors of this pterosaur, likely average-sized asdarchids that flew from island to island, found themselves in a paradise with no one to challenge them. With no predators to fear and a buffet of dwarf dinosaurs to eat, they grew and grew and grew. They filled the role of top predator, becoming immensely big, with virtually no competition or threat from others. Hatzegopteryx became a giant, not in spite of living on an island, but because of it. It had become the T-Rex of Hatzeg. To become a terrestrial apex predator, a flying animal needs a new set of tools. A long, delicate beak for snatching fish simply won't work. Hatzegopteryx evolved a weapon system that was utterly terrifying. It started with its skull. The recovered fragments allowed paleontologists to reconstruct a head of freakish proportions. It measured 2.5 meters, or 8 feet and 2 inches, in length. This makes it one of the biggest skulls of any non-marine animal, ever. But unlike most pterosaur skulls, which possessed a light, gracile build, the head of Hatzegopteryx was exceptionally robust and sturdy. It was thick, wide, and contained large ridges, suggesting a massive amount of muscle was attached to it in real life. This was not a beak, it was a battering ram. Then there was its neck. Most ajdarchids, like Quetzalcoatlus, are known for their extremely long, thin, and rather weak necks. Hatzegopteryx broke the mold. Its neck was surprisingly strong, sporting a short and broad design. Studies found it to have been about half the length of what would have been expected for a pterosaur of its size. This sturdy Frankenstein neck was further supported by thick ridges that once again served as muscle attachment points. This granted it a seriously high level of durability when maneuvering its titanic skull. Some research found that this reinforced neck could withstand forces up to 10 times its total body weight. This unusual strength, coupled with the brutal proportions of its skull and jaw, has led paleontologists to a chilling conclusion. This pterosaur was on a completely different level than others when it came to killing. It was likely preying on animals that were too large to fully swallow. In this case, that meant dinosaurs. While Hatzeg Island played a role in making Hatzegopteryx a giant, it played the opposite role in downsizing its prey. The island was a land of dwarfs, and Hatzegopteryx was their boogeyman. The relatively tiny hadrosaurs, the horse-sized titanosaurs, all were potential victims. It is believed to have killed larger prey, possibly even the adult dwarf dinosaurs, by stabbing or bludgeoning the poor animals to death with its giant, reinforced skull. It was a terrestrial generalist forager. This means it spent most of its time on land, stalking through the forests like a nightmarish, giraffe-sized stork, hunting anything that came its way that wasn't too much of a challenge. This brings us to a critical question. How does a 16-foot-tall, robust tank get off the ground? While land seems to be where Hatzegopteryx spent most of its life, this behemoth was still very much capable of flight. Its wings were fully developed and comparable in structure to those of other known flying pterosaurs, indicating that its massive size did not result in it being flightless. But to do so, it needed a way to lighten its load. The answer was in the internal structure of its bones. The massive 2.5-meter skull, while appearing solid, was actually a marvel of biological engineering. The bones contained many pits and hollow points, a structure known as pneumaticity. This made it far less hefty than it appeared, but still incredibly strong and flexible. On top of this, the wing bones also contained these same pits and hollow points. This is unique among pterosaurs and has been likened to the structure of expanded polystyrene, also known in the US as styrofoam. This incredible weight-saving adaptation no doubt aided it in taking flight. But even with a more efficient build, getting into the air was still not an easy task. It couldn't just flap its wings and take off. It was too heavy. To achieve this feat, Hatzegopteryx likely had to launch itself off the ground by essentially jumping with all four limbs. Using its powerful front limbs, which were its wings, it would have vaulted its massive body into the air in a quad launch, a method now believed to be common for all large pterosaurs. Once in the air, it was once believed to be an excellent flyer, capable of traversing large distances. However, in recent times, a new study has challenged this. It claims that due to its massive, robust body, it probably could not fly for long distances. It was instead only good at flying for short periods before requiring a break. It's now believed that Hatzegopteryx would have primarily used its flying capabilities to locate new hunting spots and to traverse the island it ruled. Being able to fly across its island kingdom was an overpowered tool for the already biggest predator around. Hatzeg Island was dominated by a woodland, forest-like ecosystem that made movement quite restricted for some of the larger animals. With its thick brush, large rivers, and lush vegetation, The island supported a diverse array of life, all of which would have been subjected to the terror of Hatzegopteryx. As mentioned, some of these inhabitants included multiple dwarf dinosaurs. There was the sauropod Magursaurus, the hadrosaurs Telmatosaurus and Zalmoxes, and the small armored dinosaur Struthiosaurus. Non-dinosaurs came in the form of crocodiles like Allodoposuchus, and even other pterosaurs called this island home. So far, 3 separate undisputed species have been found on the island, but they were all significantly smaller, with wingspans ranging from 3.5 to 5 meters. None came close to the size of Hatzegopteryx. This allowed it to be by far the largest carnivore on both land and in the skies. It ruled this island, no doubt, and enjoyed a tropical paradise. Europe at the time was much warmer than it is today, resulting in Hatzeg Island bearing a subtropical climate with tropical plants. It was the undisputed king of a bizarre, lost world. A world where the laws of nature had been turned upside down, a place where a flying reptile became a terrestrial tyrant, and the mighty dinosaurs became its prey. Sadly, the rule of the Hatzegopteryx didn't last for long. Sooner rather than later, the Cretaceous period would be violently ended by a large asteroid impact. This cosmic event ushered in the extinction of all non-avian dinosaurs and all pterosaurs, including the largest animal to have ever soared the skies. The creature that had evolved in perfect isolation, becoming the apex predator of its own unique world, was helpless against a global catastrophe. Its entire kingdom, the strange island of dwarfs and giants, was wiped from the face of the earth. The winged monster of Hatzeg, a creature that had achieved a level of dominance unseen in any other pterosaur, vanished forever, leaving only its monstrous bones behind as a clue to the strange paths evolution can take. The legacy of Hatzegopteryx is more than just a new record holder for the largest flying animal. It is a concept. It is a terrifying lesson in evolutionary mechanics, a real-life example of what happens when you remove the apex predator from an ecosystem. Nature will find a way to fill that gap, and the results can be the stuff of nightmares. The debate continues. Was Quetzalcoatlus also a terrestrial stalker, or was Hatzegopteryx a bizarre one-off, a unique product of its island home? Hatzegopteryx proves, at the very least, that the undisputed body plan was capable of becoming a giraffe-sized dinosaur-hunting terror, and it took that model to its most terrifying extreme. If you found this story of bizarre island evolution fascinating, be sure to subscribe and join us for more journeys into the extinct echoes